Hong Kong is well known for being a chaotic and vibrant city and well known for its food scene, but what I didn't expect going there was the sheer number of lines I would encounter, or how the food would stack against Sydney's very, very good Cantonese food scene. Here's my brutally honest review of which foods were worth the wait and which ones you should skip. Hello, we are back in our hotel room. We just went to Cum's Roast Goose. This is half a goose, definitely more than you need for 2 people. But the hack really is to get takeaway at this restaurant because there were so many people waiting outside, probably at least an hour-long line in the drizzle, and this takeaway box took about 5 minutes. So if you do have somewhere to take it, I would definitely recommend takeaway over trying to wait for hours in line to sit down at the restaurant. The goose is a little lukewarm, but it's still pretty good. The skin is incredible, very fatty, very decadent. The meat, not as good as duck in my opinion. If you really want to go sit down inside and get the fresh experience, lining up about 30 minutes before the opening time on a weekday worked for us. We were the second group to get admitted inside and it was a total of 40 or 45 minutes wait. I honestly would just go with the takeaway method if you're not in the first to third group unless you have time to burn. Of all the Cantonese siu yok, my favourite is the roast pork, which I actually prefer to suckling pig. Cum's does it well. The skin is crispy and they give you really good cuts that are not so rich on pure fat. In that, I'd say they have a leg up on Sydney stores, but flavour-wise, a really decent roast pork at a Sydney barbecue shop can definitely compete. They serve it with a classic ABC Cantonese soup, and this was worth the specific wait for me. Mongkok was a riot of textures, lights, and old school shops. We went to the ladies, goldfish, and flower markets, and I'm not gonna lie, the conditions, especially in the rain, felt pretty awful for a lot of the shopkeepers. And while the rundown and cramped buildings are intriguing as photography material, it did make me feel pretty bad for the people who have to live in these conditions day to day. I recommend Hakdae and the whole building complex if you're looking to pick up Hong Kong souvenirs. We also visited Heath Mall, which has a lot of interesting little boutiques and clothing stores, but the souvenir quality in their stores was not as high as the ones in Hakdae in my opinion. We definitely should have pre-booked at Lady Street Sik Faan Co because the Friday night walk-in wait was over 2.5 hours, to the point where they were taking last orders about 15 minutes after we sat down. Fully admit this was an own goal and we were close to giving up at various points, but figured walking into anywhere decent on a Friday night in Mongkok would probably be the same amount of waiting. The interior is styled like an outdoors Dai Pai Dong. In all honesty, the food was good but not mind-blowing, definitely comparable to my favourite restaurants in Hurstville or Eastwood. The prawn toast was good, but literally dripping with oil, so everything was quite heavy. Worth it if you book ahead and go with a big group of friends, but not otherwise. Hello, we are at Jenny's Bakery, which is a must visit when you're in Hong Kong. They sell a bunch of tea and butter cookies, which are so fragrant, super recommended, and there's always a massive line. But we are in the Sheung Wan branch, which is a little bit easier. I think we're probably going to wait about 20 minutes, but fingers crossed, and we'll take you inside. I can confirm 100% that Jenny Bakery cookies are still worth the wait. I've only ever gotten close to one imitation in Sydney and have never seen it again, and I'm still savouring the last of my tin 2 months later. We stumbled upon Fat J looking for a highly rated char siu store in the area and only waited about 15 minutes to walk in on a weeknight. This was a small and contemporary store and exactly what we needed after a long rainy day. And yes, their char siu is amazing, but that soup. I legit ordered another bowl and it was exactly what I needed. You can choose between several cuts, including shoulder and pork belly, and while it still doesn't compare to my mum's homemade one, it's not nearly as sweet as most tend to be, and has really good flavour and quality. Definitely worth it. We were excited to go to a Cha Chaan Teng for breakfast, and this Hong Kong diner environment was decent, but again the food was just okay. I've had better in Sydney, and for some reason the menu just came across as really heavy and overwhelming. The bread roll in this corned beef sandwich was dry and cold, and I made the disastrous mistake of accidentally swapping my rice noodles for lettuce when QR ordering, and ended up with bland soup, double lettuce, and so-so beef and mushroom balls. This visit was definitely tainted by human error, but not worth it in my opinion. If you're into design and curios that you can't find as easily in your usual tourist traps, I highly recommend dropping by PMQ when you're visiting Central in Hong Kong. Originally built as police headquarters, this site has been refurbished into 2 buildings full of boutique stores, selling everything from clothing to magnets to perfumes. Many TikTok folks have featured the famous Twemco flip clock, which you can find in a store here. In general, I'd say the price point for the souvenirs here and the various objects are quite a bit higher than what you would typically find in the markets, but I also felt like they were stocked with much more intention, featuring a lot of more local artists and boutique artists that were compiled in these stores. Definitely a nice place to browse and spend a little bit of a morning. We dropped into Pici Central with low expectations for authentic Italian food in Hong Kong. Let's just say the pasta was definitely giving more egg noodle than pasta, especially with the white sauce, but the beef carpaccio and ragu was decent. We also tested the quality of just any 4-ish rated roast shop on Google, and while this plate was okay, I'd say the average quality in Sydney's Chinatown is actually a little bit higher. Bakehouse Hong Kong and Vision Bakery are two of the trendiest names that come up when you talk about egg tarts and desserts, so we had to check it out. Conveniently, they're located within 2 minutes of each other, and when we went to Vision, I was blown away by how beautiful the cakes, pies and desserts were, but the portion sizes were way too big to be contemplating stomaching that right after a big lunch. Instead, we decided to line up at Bakehouse. It was the middle of the day, pouring rain, and the line was fairly long but moved quickly. However, we literally got some of the last Bakehouse egg tarts available before they closed it for the afternoon.
Hello, we've got egg tart. Just one. Because moderation is a virtue.
And I'm not going to lie to you guys, these egg tarts were the bomb. They were so good, and I was so delighted to actually find that they had a second branch in Wan Chai, which was literally a few minutes walk from where we were staying, where you could actually sit down and have breakfast without waiting in line all day. Definitely get the egg tart as part of your breakfast set. The pastry is so crumbly and unlike anything I've ever tasted, and the filling is not too sweet, which is excellent. The matcha was aggressively mid, and this fried chicken and waffle had a Sichuan peppercorn flavour, but it was very aggressively spicy, and they didn't take the peppercorns out, so I wouldn't recommend it. And then if you keep continuing to take the central mid-level escalators, which is the longest outdoor covered escalator system in the world, you'll find yourself a little bit elevated in Hong Kong and in a position to look down, which is always my favourite way of viewing the streets and taking photographs. Then if you walk towards Admiralty Station, you'll find yourself over a system of very interesting covered and elevated walkways. You may also stumble upon the Hong Kong Zoological and Botanical Gardens, which is a fascinating little oasis of green and peacefulness amongst all the urban jungles. We found flamingos, birds, tortoises and monkeys, and it was such a refreshing break from all of the rest of the city. Not a food place, but highly recommend it. I'm certain that there are better food places in Hong Kong that were worth the wait, so please do drop them in the comment section for my next visit. And stay tuned for more Hong Kong and Taiwan travel content to come and more.